Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new Fallout 76 build. So, we're back on the PTS again today in the run-up to the upcoming camp building overhaul, and I'm going old school here. We're leaning into something I haven't been able to do since Fallout 4, but I've always wanted to, and that is we're going to repair an existing structure. So there's a really cool house down in the Cranberry Bog, and we're going to rebuild it. And yeah, it's come out pretty well. I'm really pleased with this, and it's a little taste of the good old days in some ways, which is cool to see come in 76. Also, a little side note, see that sheep squatch poster on the back there? Things like that, if you free place them, make sure you come back after you've relogged and just adjust things, because I didn't, and that's twice now it's done that to me. So yeah, they tend to adjust themselves ever so slightly. Anyway, should we have a look at where we are on the map? Okay, so as mentioned, here we are down in the Cranberry Bog. There's the house, there's the Veiled Sundew Grove, Quarry X3. As you can see, we're right by the main freeway running up to the abandoned bog town there from Watoga. A main thoroughfare through the middle of the Cranberry Bog. And yeah, pretty conspicuous, pretty much smack in the middle of the zone. Maybe a little bit north of the middle. But still, very cool spot. So in we go. And we've got a bit of stuff knocking around in here, but one of the major reasons I chose this house is because, relatively speaking, it's uncluttered, and a lot of the other ones have a lot of trash lying around in them that's just going to get in the way if you want to decorate it. So I picked this one because it won't have that issue. So, first up, we're going to begin the process of repairing by getting some walls in. I'm using the abandoned mine kit just because it's one of the ones that most suits being used as sort of planks nailed onto a wall. This or the base game kit, or there's a couple of others could work. Maybe some of the corrugated metal ones, in fact, as long as you don't overuse them. But we're trying to make it look like it's been repaired, so planks nailed to the wall is kind of the right vibe. And with the new free placement option, you see the placement thing at the bottom there, we can now just sink them more or less straight into the wall. It's not completely free placement. Collision is not completely gone, but it's 90-odd% of the way there, so that's pretty good on the whole. So yeah, we did make a point of just measuring this up with some markers, namely that rail at the top there, or the line on the top of the wall, just so we know where the top's going to be, and we can kind of make sure these walls are roughly the same height, which will help us close the gaps up when it comes to putting roofs on in a bit. I'm not actually going to plug every gap using these walls for two reasons in particular. One, I want some variety in there. That's the big reason, in fact. The other one is that some of these lean over a bit more than others, so these just don't necessarily look the part. Using smaller bits and pieces kind of fits in the gaps a little bit better and is a bit more... you kind of mix and match and sort of fill smaller gaps more easily that way, or more effectively. But there we go. In fact, I could probably have mixed things up a bit more. Here would have been a very good example of somewhere to use something different, like something from the fences, for example. One of the junk walls or something would have been a good fit in there. Perhaps one of the partitions that doesn't have legs sticking out. Just to mix up the textures a bit, you know, as I did elsewhere, but that might have been an additional place to do it. Anyway, I think it looks pretty good. So, that's most of the walls that I want to put in for the moment, I think. We're going to have a look at some roofs. Now, this did not work out the way I was hoping, this initial one. I started off using these corner pieces, and it turned out that was a problem, which in some ways I could have perhaps foreseen, but obviously I did not. Thought I'd show you anyway so you can get the general idea. I'm using the line on the wall there to kind of make sure everything's about the same height, which is actually a little bit too high in this case. When I actually come back to it, I'll lower it down, but that's not the real issue. One of the issues is these don't quite fill the gaps. You can see they're a bit too wide. My initial thought was I can just solve this with a flat roof that I can just then put over the gap there and it will plug the gap nicely. Which is half true, but in this particular instance not. Can you spot the error there yet? Or the miscalculation? Still, with free placement, you can just bung the roof up pretty close to where you want it, then switch to the modify mode and edit it. And that is definitely the easiest way to fine-tune. Even after this change, it'll still be easier to do that, because the game will have a better idea of exactly where the piece is, or something to that effect anyway. So, as you can see, I can plug gaps with these straight roofs, these standard sloped roofs, but when it comes to the gaps between the corner pieces, we have the top corners sticking out into the air because, well, it's not a triangular piece that I'm putting in there, is it? It's a square piece in a triangular hole. So that's not going to look good. I mean, if that doesn't bother you, great. You won't really be able to tell from the ground or from the outside when it's done. But for me, I'll know it's there, you know? So, we're going to redo this. we're going to grab just the regular old straight pieces here, and we're going to do the whole thing based off of these, which works a little bit better. One of the other issues that we had with the corner pieces is there's no inverted one. And on the corner to my right, I would have needed an inverted corner, and yeah, without that, I wouldn't be able to close that gap effectively either. So, we're going to carefully position this in. As you can see, I'm lining up with the bottom of that thick sort of line across the top of the wall there that marks where the upper floor once was, supposedly. We're going to line it up carefully against the wall here. You need to really make sure it fits right in the corner rather than further away, because the walls lean inward, but in the corners, they are closest to this starting point and they're closest to square. When you get it about right, you can snap in like that. See, we're not quite there. We need to adjust that a little bit. And we should be able to get that more or less where we want it. That looks okay, I think. Maybe a little bit more adjustment. Yeah, you still can't move things really short distances, unfortunately. They still do jump back a little bit, although not quite as much as they used to, but they still do it enough to be annoying. So, this unfortunately is 3 foundation equivalents backwards, so we'll need to use a flat roof in the middle, because only one set of roofs actually has the peaked centerpiece, and this one ain't it. But we've got that in, and, well, that's pretty good, actually. It's a little bit too far forward there. I think I can nudge it back an inch or two and make sure we've got a bit more of a solid connection so that when I snap extra roofs in, we don't run the risk of there being a gap. But for the moment, that's not bad, so we'll fine-tune. Yeah, incidentally, I'm once again using the abandoned mine roofs here, primarily because they're the scrappiest looking, most improvised looking roof. And when you want scrappy, that's definitely the best bet. I do come back to these quite a lot. So, with that first little arch in, we can now do the same thing again here. Notice the tree in the middle is gone, which is quite helpful. You'll be able to put a floor in the gap and actually use the centre of the space. So there we go, 2 full rows in, and now we're going to snap one more in this back corner over the back door. However, we're going to grab that, switch it to free placement again, and nudge it a little bit left so it touches the edge of the wall, because I think covering the gap in the middle there with another flat roof will be just a little better than having one stick out off of the end. It'll be easier when placing, if nothing else, to see whether it lines up right as well. So that works alright. It does mean, however, that this one needs to be entirely free-handed into place. And it works. It's a little bit awkward in places, but it works. So if I move this over, you can see they line up. Now that effectively lines up with the corner. But this wall on the right leans in quite a long way, as you can see. We're also left with another problem, namely this big old gap here on the left as we look towards the front. Not that one, on the other side of the roof. Although the position doesn't look too bad. Here at the back, yeah, we can plug that gap there easily enough, but at the front, it's a bit awkward because we need a wall to connect to the other roof anyway, because they're at different heights and they're in different positions. So we're going to have to move this front one all the way over so it meets up with where that wall will be. Fortunately, because of the lean in on the somewhat damaged wall on the right here, it doesn't actually cause a problem. It'll line up all right. And once we board that gap up, things should come together quite nicely. A little bit of fine-tuning is required. So there we go. We can now plug this one at the back. Looking good. A little bit of fine-tuning, and that should be practically invisible. Nice. Cool, so that's the roof in place. We just need to plug this hole up, and you'll see what I was trying to get at before. Grab a couple of these arches, and I'm going to freehand these in, even though they will snap, just because with everything else being free-handed in, it just needs to be a little bit more bespoke, I guess would be a good word. It's not quite right. Not too bad. Now we'll grab the inverted one and just plug that top gap as well. Again, freehanding it. Make sure I grab the right one there. Not that it really matters that much. It's not that much difference. And a little bit of adjustment. That looks pretty good to me. Not the perfect repair job, but we're kind of going for a not perfect job anyway. The house is half falling down anyway, so not perfect is pretty much the theme. So I'm going to grab one more of these arches. I don't want to plug all of the sort of arches under the roof with these pieces, just because it's a little too neat and tidy for the style we're going for. You can do if that's your preference, but for me, I'm just going to use the one here, and the rest will just kind of get close enough by shoving bits and pieces in there. Speaking of, this wall on the end, I'm going to board up almost entirely using just random bits and pieces, primarily fences, but we'll also use a lot of signs. I'm not going to show you every single thing I did, just because we are already quite far enough into this one. The video is not exactly the shortest ever. I would have liked it to be a bit shorter, but what can you do? Let's just push that back a bit because it's sticking out a bit too far there. Yeah, I'll give you the general principle so you can see what I'm doing and how I did it, and you just then repeat using whatever pieces take your fancy to plug up the rest of the gaps. And I still need to come back a bit further. There we go. I want that to be level with the floor because it's got a solid base that's sticking out into the room, so you'll see that. But for other things, you can kind of float them a little bit in the wall if you want to. Actually, I think I ended up not doing, just for the sake of evenness and ease of assembly, but you certainly can do that with songs that aren't weird bits sticking out in weird ways. Or at least, you can do what you like, I suppose, but it would bother me to have the legs just sticking out into mid-air, you know? Whereas this, for example, wouldn't be an issue. But yeah. In addition to plugging up the walls like this, these same principles are going to be applied elsewhere. Specifically, I'm going to fortify the front porch, and I'm going to construct freehand a back porch out of a foundation, a roof, and some supports, just to kind of make the whole thing a bit more secure, because this is a very, very much out on the main road kind of a location, so it's not subtle, it's not hidden, it's kind of likely to attract bad guys. And in a realistically practical sense, it's also a random encounter spawn point, so defensible is good. Actually, their creatures tend to spawn outside, so it's not too bad, but still, defensibility is important in the Wasteland. So I really like these corrugated steel fences. They came up on Reddit recently. Somebody was asking what they were. I was quite amused when I saw that post. But these are really good for using as sort of scrappy, well, not just fences, but sort of scrappy pieces of wall like this as well. I'm quite happy with it. I'm not going to overdo it, otherwise it'll end up being a bit too uniform. But we can use the free placement to make it look like a single solid piece, more or less, that's in there. Make everything come together. Then we grab signs and just grab whatever fits, whatever you like, and just sort of carefully freehand it in to plug up the gaps. And you can kind of go crazy with this. I did quite a bit of decorating, as you'll see, in the not-too-distant future, because we're not going to add a whole lot more to this, as you can see really where I'm going with this now, I think. But you can keep going until you plug up as many of the gaps as you like. There was a decent amount of budget left when I was done, so I could have kept on going if I'd wanted. I kind of deliberately left the gaps in, partly because it lets smoke out, partly because it adds to the ramshackle vibe. And yeah, all in all, I'm pretty pleased with the result. Let's just grab these responder signs, which are awesome for this sort of thing. Plug the gap, and then I will head off, add my last couple of bits and pieces, decorate, and we will tour in just a moment. Okay, finished product. So I have added quite a lot here. As you can see, I've fortified this front porch. Stairs, porch, everything here already in place. I've just added a little defensive emplacement on the front there, some extra fences, some chain link. I've put a little roof piece in the middle as well to help plug up a gap in there. Just so if anybody coming down the road decides that this is a good place to plunder, they are going to be sorely disappointed. At least that's the hope. Still a few trees in here. Most of them came back after I finished the build and relogged and stuff, but not the one inside, unfortunately. So that would have been annoying, as you'll see in a bit. There we go. A whole load more bits and pieces. Basically the same principle on this end with the partitions and signs and stuff to plug up the gaps. More rat generator, because that felt appropriate. Not sure where that tanning station comes from, whether or not it's the next season, which is entirely possible. There's a bunch of stuff in the menus that are not currently in the live servers, so, or if it's just something I've missed, but nonetheless, nice to have. It does slightly hide the fact that I put an upper level of defences around, as well as a lower level on this little porch that I've built on the back here. As you can see, it's a flat roof, a foundation, which is actually one of the Prickett's Fort ones, and then some posts that have just been freehanded in to support the roof, and a few railings added as well. Works quite nicely. This little barricaded off, fenced off area at the back, I'm quite happy with the results on. It's pretty cool, it's fun, and you'll see why I did it in a minute. For now, swing around this side. You can see this really coming together with lots and lots of bits, pieces and signs, and just the ramshackleness made it look like the planks, as much as possible, were just nailed on the outside. was the vibe I was going for. I think it's come together quite well. Those two wood nodes are already there, but I added the stash box, the stump, and then just stuck the axe in it. It's a favourite little decorative piece of mine, but it's even easier to do with free placement, as the axe can be a bit awkward about where it places, but with free placement, no issue. So we'll swing around, got a couple of extra bits of decor, and this big old truck is in fact a power armor station. So I added some extra bits and pieces of decoration around that, because it's not completely sunk into the ground. FYI, Bethesda, if any of you folks happen to see this, we need to be able to sink things into the ground more with free placement. It is an important detail that we can do a little bit of with some things, but nowhere near enough, and other things need to sink in more. So, yeah, there's an addition that needs to go in. But we'll head on inside. Much more secure. You can still kind of enjoy the weather and stuff, and it won't stop bullets, but if anybody lobs, I don't know, an axe in your direction, there's a good chance the fence will do the job there. And hopefully you'll see them coming anyway, so you'll be able to defend yourself and fire back from here. But yeah, all in all, looks alright to me. Got a bit of a Cranberry Bog vibe. Added a couple of the Fallout First storage items, a scrap box and ammo box, so that I can just drop stuff off on the way back if I need to. Not that I'll actually be using this camp, you know. Or with it being the PTS and the vendor out there. But if I were to do it on the live service, that's one of the places, at least, that I would put my scrap boxes. We'll head in. So these doors are just free-handed in, because obviously they won't snap into this building, but we've got a bunch of as-yet unreleased posters. I'm betting those posters, in fact, the Cooper Howard ones, will make their appearance in December, not in September, just because, obviously, that's when the Season 2 of the show comes back. So this is a little seating area. That sofa is already there, and I believe the table is actually as well. So I sort of built it up around that, added some extra details, put a little divider in there. Free-placed a fire inside the stove, so hallelujah, we can do that. And I mentioned the smoke earlier, but the gaps up near the top will let that out, much like an old-school kind of medieval house. Wouldn't be as warm as we'd like, but hey, what can you do? It doesn't really get in winter in Appalachia, apparently, at least not in this version of it. So, hey, apparently dropping nukes really screws up the environment or something. What a surprise, I guess. Anyway, on the other side of that partition, we have my main crafting space. I did think about building a space outside for crafting, but there's enough room inside here that I elected just to keep it inside the main house. But I've kept it nice and compact. Got three most important benches there, weapons, ammo, and armour. And a few bits of extra decoration. The punch card machine is basically just free-placed in and floating a little bit, so it gets it off the ground, and it just takes up less space, which is nice. I am quite pleased with how that looks. It really does need to be a set of displays on the back of that weapons workbench that are built in rather than anything else, though. As free-handing them in works, but it just feels unnecessary and like an oversight. A few extra bits and pieces for a kitchen area here. I've never seen this fridge as a player placeable item before, this basic one. I don't know if I just missed it or what, but yeah, I would definitely like to have that really rustic, beaten-up one, because it suits the more beaten-up builds quite nicely. So these Nuka-Cola things, I put these in. One's a vendor, one's a display. And I put them in to hide a bookshelf that you can kind of see inside the one on the right if you look really closely. But you do have to look really closely. As I could have probably free-handed stuff onto the shelves, but it was really scrappy and messy, and hiding it just felt like the way to go. And yeah, this just worked really, really well. You'd never know it was there if I didn't point it out, I don't think. Obviously, this one on the end, you kind of see what the tall one looked like as well. Could probably squeeze some bits on there, but no, still, it's fine. You get the idea, right? There's an ammo box again inside. I've got those bits and pieces just in case I come in the back door or something. There's my chemistry station with some extra bits and pieces on the top, just to dress it up, make it look like it's been there a while. Back wall coming together. Added another little stove back here for heating the bedroom area, and quite happy with this little bedroom area. Probably a bit drafty, but you know, wrap up in the blankets, stove's going, you'll survive. Got a few cosy bits and pieces in there. Did add some power and some lights and stuff, because yeah, we've got some improvised options for that look suitable. A lot of scrappy bits and pieces that look like they've been dragged back as well. Quite happy. And merged the bed into the bookshelf there, which I know many people have done without the new sort of features and stuff, but it's that much easier to do when you just free place it straight in. And it makes the thing look a little bit more interesting. a quick look at the floor. I decided to put a couple of rugs down, but I didn't want to overdo it just because I kind of wanted to leave the impression of what it looked like before. And I forgot to mention before, but you actually see in the crafting area there where I've free placed in a couple of walkways from the Pricket's Fort set, which you could use any floor for, but it plugs up the gap where the tree is quite nicely. So let's head out the back door here into my added on little porch area. You can see the foundation a little better here. I've added some decor as well. That branch is a little unfortunate, but what can you do? Because either have the branch sticking through or demolish the tree, and I wanted to keep the tree, so... There is a little staircase there that's built onto the back of the house. It's in place anyway, and with free placement I could just push the foundation right over the top of it. There's no problem at all. So we've got a nice little secure back entrance to the building here. There's a really cool monorail train up top just behind this spot that might be fun to build on. I've built there in the past, but with free placement I might be able to do a bit more. Might be one to consider for a future build, possibly. Over there, incidentally, is where enemies tend to spawn when you've got a camp here, or at least on the test server they do. I was a little worried they'd spawn inside the house, but fortunately they don't. Really happy with this little idea, by the way. Both the whole fenced off area and what I did with the gate here. Got two of these corrugated steel fences, and there you go. Gates on top of each other give us a little double gate to get into a little bathroom area. So got the toilet, got a shower, a few extra bits and pieces of decoration. I decided to fence all this off because I figure, well, if you've got your back turned while you're having a shower or whatever, you probably want a little bit of something between you and the wasteland, so, you know, something doesn't come tramping over the Cranberry Bog and shoot you in the back while you're showering or something. Or worse, while you're on the toilet. That would be very, very embarrassing for whoever finds your body. Although after a few years you just become an environmental storytelling skeleton at that point, but still, while you're still identifiable, it's not what you want. There we go. I like that little idea on the back there. Just adds a little bit of sort of a practical, secure nod towards, in big air quotes, the realities of wasteland living. Which is also why I put the turret up there. Partially to kind of deal with the inevitable arrival of bird guys. Partially as a more effective alarm system than an actual alarm, to be honest. And it lets you know when they come in, doesn't it? Because it starts shooting. But there we go. Really quite pleased with how this one came out. Really glad to be able to do some building on existing structures. There's unfortunately not any others that I'm really happy to build, or not many others that are going to be fun to work with because they're a bit of a mess, but I'm quite happy with how this came out. So, hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you did, please consider dropping subs and likes. I very much appreciate it. Social media links down below if you want to get notified, as well as, of course, the notification bell. And channel memberships down below the video on the blue join button if you'd like to support the channel. I very, very much appreciate it. If you get a chance, join us for live streams as well. We are, of course, playing Fallout 76, and we've got a couple of other cool bits and pieces on the go as well. So I would love to see you there. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.